Perfect. Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the fourth installment of the Global Methane Initiative Biogas Subcommittee Workshop Series, Mobilizing Methane Action at Open Dump Sites and Landfills. My name is Pat Coder-Peter, and I'm an environmental policy analyst with US EPA's Office of Air and Radiation. I'm very happy to be with you today for a 90-minute session on the really exciting opportunities to reduce methane emissions from municipal solid waste through source segregation. We have a number of speakers lined up to present some really fascinating examples of source segregation programs from various perspectives and localities, and we certainly hope that you enjoy it and learn a lot. That said, before we get started, I want to turn it over to our colleagues at Apt Global for a quick rundown on interacting with the platform for the webinar today. So I'll pass it over to Catherine for an overview of interacting with WebEx and navigating the language function for today's presentation.
Thanks, Pat, and thanks everyone for joining today. So like Pat said, I'm just going to go over a couple of software overview tips before we get into the presentations today. So first, there are two ways to connect with the audio. You can either listen through your computer speakers, or you can use the number that is posted on the webinar slide to call into the presentation. All participant lines will be muted for the duration of the webinar, regardless of the audio method that you choose. So we are going to use two panels for today's webinar, the participant panel and the question and answer panel. Both of these can be found on the right-hand side of your screen. You may need to click the arrow next to the desired panel to expand and see all of the content. And if for some reason one of them does not appear, you can navigate to the bottom right of your screen and click on whichever panel you are missing. So today, live captioning is available for this event, as the second presentation will be given in Spanish. So to view or hide captions, you can click the closed caption button that is on the lower left-hand side of your screen, and then you can click on the arrow to select your preferred caption language. So only the host will be changing the spoken language throughout the event, and we recommend that you make your closed captioning language selection now, just so that it's enabled for the remainder of the webinar. And then just as a reminder, we are recording the session. So throughout the duration of the webinar, you can enter questions into the Q&A panel. When submitting questions, please select all panelists from the drop-down menu, as this will ensure that all speakers can see your questions. These questions will be moderated at the end of the webinar during the Q&A session. The final materials will be posted to the GMI website. And with that, I'll pass it back to Pat.
Great. Thank you very much, Catherine. Hello again, everyone, and thank you again for being with us today. This is the agenda for the webinar today. We've got, I'll provide a brief introduction to the work under the Global Methane Initiative. Then I'll pass it over to Luis Vallejo from the Ministry of Environment, Water, and Ecological Transition in Ecuador. Then we'll hear a case study from Indore and from Olivaria, Argentina, India, and Olivaria, Argentina. Next slide, please. And next as well. Great. So I'd like to start with a brief introduction on methane and its importance to slowing climate change. Many of you may know this, but like carbon dioxide, methane is a greenhouse gas that traps heat in our atmosphere rather than letting it escape, leading to an overall rise in temperatures. Not only does methane have a higher global warming potential, meaning it traps more heat per molecule than carbon dioxide, but it's also considered a short-lived climate pollutant. So that means that it only remains in the atmosphere for about 12 years, which is a much shorter time frame than carbon dioxide, which can linger for up to or over a century. So with this in mind, we can see that cutting methane now is an opportunity to immediately slow the rate of climate change. And furthermore, capturing this methane and converting it into clean energy has real energy security and public health co-benefits that we'd love to take advantage of. Next slide, please. In response to this opportunity, to this short-term opportunity to make progress on addressing global climate change, the Global Methane Initiative was formed in 2004 and is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year, which is very exciting. Sorry. The Global Methane Initiative, GMI, is an international public-private partnership focused on advancing cost-effective methane mitigation projects and reducing barriers to the recovery and use of methane as an energy source. GMI accomplishes this mission by providing technical support to deploy methane to energy projects around the world. And we also work in 3 key sectors: biogas, which includes municipal solid waste, agriculture, and wastewater, as well as working on reducing methane emissions from coal mines and oil and gas. US EPA, as a founding member of the Global Methane Initiative, provides a range of in-kind support to develop tools and resources for partner countries in the initiative. Next slide, please. As I noted, GMI's work focuses on 3 key sectors, one of which is biogas, which itself has 3 focus sectors. The biogas subsector at hand today, and the one that I suspect is important to many of you on this call, is municipal solid waste, or MSW. MSW is the 3rd largest source of global methane emissions caused by human activity, contributing roughly 12% of all of global emissions. In the municipal solid waste sector, methane is generated primarily through the decomposition of organic wastes, for example, food waste or green waste, in anaerobic or oxygen-free environments such as dump sites and landfills. According to the World Bank, food and green waste make up approximately 44% of the global waste stream, a huge proportion. And because that total waste generation is expected to increase by more than 3 times by 2050, reducing methane emissions in the waste sector is a key opportunity to mitigate the worst effects of global climate change. But again, we also see it as a huge opportunity to deliver co-benefits such as better air quality and improved health by improving improved human health, by improving solid waste management systems. Next slide, please. So many of you may know there's been an exciting growth of attention on methane abatement overall, and especially in the municipal solid waste sector over the last few years. And GMI is working to collaborate, coordinate, and support many of those streams of effort. As such, much of GMI's fantastic work is helping partner countries advance, for instance, the Global Methane Pledge, which is an agreement by over 150 countries to collectively cut global methane emissions by at least 30% from 2020 levels by 2030. There are currently 34 GMI partner countries that are also pledge signatories, and GMI provides cost-free support to partner countries to contribute to the pledge goal. We're very happy to see more and more countries taking on the work of reducing methane emissions, and we look forward to employing our decades of experience and our sector-specific tools to addressing climate change and improving the lived environment for communities around the world. Next slide, please. So some of the tools that I just mentioned are housed in US EPA's Biogas Toolkit, which you can see here. The compendium of resources, the Biogas Toolkit is a compendium of resources, and it was created as part of our work on methane mitigation through GMI, but also through some of our domestic voluntary programs as well. The toolkit includes many resources which are helpful for municipal solid waste decision makers interested in methane abatement, and the tool helps to educate all stakeholders on appropriate steps in project development. It really aims to improve project success, reduce real and perceived risks of projects, and lower the cost of projects overall. Next slide, please. So you can see here on the slide a list of the few tools we have included in the Biogas Toolkit, including the Solid Waste Emissions Estimation Tool, or SWEET, the Anaerobic Digestion, or AD Screening Tool, as well as the Waste Characterization Handbook and Tool, and more. Each of these Excel-based tools were developed separately and serve as standalone tools, but they're related in their shared goal to mitigate global methane emissions through the abatement, recovery, and use of methane. Many of these tools and the rest of the resources in the Biogas Toolkit are designed to approach projects, policies, and financing in the municipal solid waste sector from the project level to the national level, with a focus on the needs of project developers, municipalities, and national level stakeholders. So there's really something in there for everyone, and we encourage you to reach out if you have any questions or think one or more of the tools might be helpful for you. Next slide, please. Great, so this is just another list of our biogas tools. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and let us know. Next slide, please. Great, so hopefully most of you have seen EPA's new wasted food scale by now. This replaces our old food recovery hierarchy. The wasted food scale ranks wasted food pathways from most to least environmentally preferable based on life cycle analyses and circularity assessment in our 2023 report called From Field to Bin, the Environmental Impacts of U.S. Food Waste Management Pathways. That report is available in 8 languages in both simple and detailed versions, and you can find it on the US EPA website. I did also want to note that earlier this month, the Biden-Harris administration launched a national strategy for reducing food loss and waste and recycling organics. And that strategy aims to prevent food loss, prevent food waste, increase the recycling rate for all organic wastes, and support policies that incentivize the prevention of food loss and waste and organic recycling. I basically mentioned all of this to highlight the work we're doing domestically to address this global problem, and again, highlight the suite of resources and tools that we have available to make progress on addressing climate change and delivering health benefits to local communities by reducing methane from municipal solid waste management at home and abroad. Next slide, please. So lastly, I just wanted to note that this is the 4th webinar in our series, Mobilizing Methane Action at Open Dump Sites and Landfills. And we hope you've been able to join the previous sessions, which have all been amazing, but we're including the links here to those recordings in case you weren't able to join or wanted to access those recordings and relive the fun. Okay, so that is going to be enough from me. I want to hand it over to our presenters so we can learn from their really exciting cases. So first up, we have Luis Vallejo with the Ministerio del Ambiente, Agua y Transición Ecológica de Ecuador. Luis, muchísimas gracias por estar con nosotros. Por favor, adelante.
Muchas gracias, Patrick. Buenos días acá con todos. Muchas gracias. Queremos primero iniciar agradeciendo a la Iniciativa Global del Metano, también a IBT Global y a LEPA por la organización y por su consideración hacia nosotros para poder difundir el trabajo que estamos haciendo acá en el país. Me presento, mi nombre es Luis Vallejo, yo trabajo en el Ministerio del Ambiente, Agua y Transición Ecológica del Ecuador en un proyecto de preinversión denominado de gestión de residuos sólidos y economía circular inclusiva, GRESI. Actualmente me encuentro trabajando por 10 años en el Ministerio del Ambiente y hemos desarrollado proyectos y actividades justamente enfocadas en la formulación de la política y la planificación nacional de los residuos sólidos. El tema que nosotros queremos hoy compartirles justamente hace referencia a las actividades que como proyecto y ministerio hemos desarrollado en función de la segregación o separación de los residuos sólidos en origen o en la fuente. Aquí tenemos el contenido. Partimos principalmente de datos macros para poner en contexto de la situación de la gestión de los residuos sólidos en el país. Luego queremos un poco enfatizar en herramientas que hemos desarrollado, principalmente guías e instructivos para la cuantificación y caracterización de los residuos sólidos, así como los proyectos e iniciativas relevantes que podemos identificar acá en el país y las próximas acciones futuras que tenemos nosotros como ministerio en relación a la gestión de los residuos sólidos. Bien, para los que no conozcan, Ecuador justamente está ubicado en la línea ecuatorial, localizado al noreste de Sudamérica. Actualmente la población estimada de nosotros es alrededor de los 18 millones de habitantes y territorialmente, administrativamente, justamente nos dividimos en 221 cantones, que son las unidades territoriales responsables justamente por el marco normativo de prestar la responsabilidad y el manejo de los residuos sólidos en sus jurisdicciones. Al año 2023, en función de la población proyectada que nosotros tenemos, se estima que en el país se generaron en Ecuador alrededor de las 5 millones de toneladas de residuos sólidos, lo que representa aproximadamente un 0.23% de la generación a nivel mundial. tenemos que la producción per cápita de residuos sólidos, es decir, lo que genera un habitante en promedio de residuos sólidos del día, es de 0.8 kilogramos de residuos sólidos. Y en el tema de la composición de residuos sólidos, conceptualmente la mayoría de residuos sólidos, cerca del 61%, corresponden a residuos de fracción o de tipo orgánico. Esto es importante tener en cuenta justamente en función de lo que estos residuos generan de gases de efecto invernadero. Y un dato importante también que queremos compartirles es que en función de la generación y población de residuos sólidos, en un escenario tendencial o escenario actual o habitual, estimamos que para el año 2050 se incrementaría alrededor del 30%, es decir, más o menos 7 millones en la generación de residuos sólidos en el país. En el tema específico de plásticos, queremos compartirles justamente considerando, ¿no?, la problemática que involucra el tema de la gestión de los residuos plásticos, información que tenemos del año 2022. Nos indican que en este año se generaron alrededor de 627,000 toneladas de residuos plásticos en el país, lo que en relación de la generación mundial representa el 0.17% de generación de residuos plásticos. Nos indica también que un ecuatoriano está generando alrededor de 34.8 kilogramos de residuos sólidos, es decir, la producción per cápita anual. Y en promedio, el 87% de los residuos plásticos que fueron recolectados, el 87% de los residuos más bien generados plásticos fueron recolectados. Y tenemos el dato de que lastimosamente el 52% aún de estos residuos plásticos se depositan en rellenos sanitarios. Esta información ha sido generada justamente en función de la elaboración de una hoja de ruta para atender la problemática de plásticos que hemos lanzado justamente en estos días, que está realizada en función del Tratado Mundial que se está formulando de plástico, con la colaboración de la Asociación Mundial de Acción Plástica y también de la WWF. Si ustedes quisieran un poco revisar el resumen de lo que plantea en datos, cifras y un alcance general de la hoja de ruta para atender la problemática de plásticos, pueden justamente ahí, utilizar ese código QR para tener mayor información. Queremos compartirles ya un poco más bien dicho, información específica en lo que tiene que ver con la separación de la fuente. Entonces, lastimosamente, todavía esta sigue siendo una tarea pendiente en nuestros municipios de atender. Tenemos el 33% de municipios del país, de los 221 municipios que conforman el país, apenas han iniciado o desarrollan actividades referentes a la separación de la fuente. 14 ya tienen una implementación más consolidada, el 14% de los municipios, justamente de procesos de separación de la fuente, y el 48%, es decir, casi la mitad de municipios del país, han iniciado sistemas de containerización. Lastimosamente acá los procesos de containerización, que son estos contenedores ubicados en las vías públicas, no establecen containerización diferenciada, es decir, que permita la separación de la fuente. Entonces, así justamente ahí podemos relacionar esta información de que existe aún todavía el bajo porcentaje de los municipios que han implementado la separación de la fuente en el país. Y un breve resumen de la normativa justamente del país en el tema de la gestión de residuos sólidos. Nosotros como Ministerio del Ambiente tenemos la rectoría, es decir, la facultad de emitir la política pública nacional para la gestión de residuos sólidos. Y justamente esto se está realizando a través de nuestro proyecto, el proyecto GRESI, las actividades y específicamente, justamente estamos también en proceso de elaboración del Plan Nacional de Residuos Sólidos, que todavía no contamos, va a ser el primer Plan Nacional de Residuos Sólidos del Ecuador, que será el instrumento de política pública a través de la cual justamente podamos establecer lo que son políticas, indicadores y metas nacionales de la gestión de residuos sólidos. Este plan justamente lo estamos construyendo de manera participativa y aquí lo interesante es justamente que se deriva el componente técnico del plan, justamente instrumentos y herramientas y guías manuales justamente que van a complementar lo que es la política pública que se va generando al respecto de residuos sólidos. Queremos comentarles sobre varias de estas herramientas justamente que como ministerio hemos podido ya desarrollar y publicar. tenemos entendido justamente que en la serie de talleres anteriores que se ha tenido justamente de los webinars, se han tratado temas justamente que tienen que ver con la caracterización de residuos sólidos. Esta es una guía destinada justamente hacia los municipios, que tiene como objetivo establecer lineamientos y parámetros estandarizados que deben ejecutar los municipios para formular los estudios de caracterización de residuos sólidos. Actualmente, lastimosamente en el país todavía tenemos una deficiencia en la calidad justamente de datos de entrada de cuantificación y caracterización de residuos sólidos. Entonces, con esta herramienta pretendemos justamente mejorar esa calidad, estandarizando los procedimientos en territorio que realizan los municipios para generar información de las características y la cantidad de residuos sólidos. ¿Cómo está conformada esta guía? Básicamente comprende dos etapas: estimar la cantidad que se generan los residuos sólidos, o dos procesos más bien, y el segundo justamente la característica y composición física de los residuos sólidos, a través de la ejecución de 4 etapas: la de planificación, justamente que es la conformación y el diseño de la planificación que deben hacer los municipios para implementar este estudio de cuantificación; la etapa de diseño, donde se establecen los generadores, y lo que es importante y es algo que nosotros hemos incorporado acá, justamente estamos diferenciando los procedimientos de acuerdo al tipo de municipio que está en función de su población. Luego tenemos ya una etapa justamente de colección y procesamiento y validación de información, previamente con la etapa de campo de recolección de datos, y justamente esto nos permite tener parámetros justamente de la cantidad y las características de residuos sólidos. Como les comentamos, justamente está partido en función del tipo de generador en residuos de tipo domiciliario y no domiciliario. Es importante mencionar que justamente para la formulación de esta guía de cuantificación tuvimos el apoyo también de Clean Air Task Force. Justamente tenemos sentido que es un colaborador también de la iniciativa, y lo que se hizo aquí fue actividades de ensayo y error a través de pilotos previamente en 2 municipios del país, que nos permitió calibrar los modelos, para definir las cantidades de muestra y los procedimientos de acuerdo al tipo de municipios. Ahora queremos justamente comentarles sobre la segunda herramienta que podemos publicar, que es justamente un instructivo para implementar la fase de separación de los residuos sólidos en la fuente. Los objetivos que tenemos o que se tiene con este instructivo principalmente es llevar a cabo, o el impacto más bien que tendríamos de llevar a cabo, la separación en la fuente de una manera correcta y selectiva, identificar y separar adecuadamente los residuos sólidos, también reducir la contaminación por el mal manejo de los residuos sólidos y promover una cultura de consumo responsable. Además de eso, fomentar la adopción de políticas de gestión integral de residuos sólidos y reducción de la cantidad de estos residuos que van a sitios de disposición final. Educar también a la población sobre los beneficios de la separación en la fuente y proveer el acceso a la información relevante, y dinamizar en este sentido puntos de reciclaje y correcta disposición de los residuos y desechos sólidos. Actores que participan en esta fase justamente es cómo está concebido este instructivo, es de empezar a través de proyectos o sectores pilotos. Tenemos actores domiciliarios como las residencias, casas, viviendas y también conjuntos multihabitacionales, instituciones educativas públicas y privadas y establecimientos de orden comercial, industrias, mercados, hoteles y restaurantes. ¿Qué criterios que considera este instructivo de separación? Justamente, primero, se basa sobre la normativa. Actualmente tenemos un código de ambiente que está a nivel de ley, que justamente establece ya una obligación para los municipios de la separación en la fuente, y también contamos con una norma técnica emitida sobre los colores de los recipientes de almacenamiento de residuos sólidos. Esta normativa técnica establece colores para una separación primaria, que principalmente se considera 3 tipos de residuos: orgánicos, desechos y los residuos de tipo reciclable. También este instructivo contempla 4 fases de implementación: de planificación, que permite organizar y justamente realizar un diagnóstico, la de socialización con la importancia de vincular actores estratégicos en el territorio, ya la fase en sí de implementación con el seguimiento que se realizará desde el Ministerio del Ambiente, y también la fase de resultado con la implementación, o más bien dicho, el seguimiento y la evaluación a través de indicadores que se establezcan en este programa de separación en la fuente por parte de los municipios. Por último, al final del instructivo tenemos recomendaciones justamente de orden operativos, justamente enfatizados o dirigidos a la ciudadanía para que ellos puedan tomar en consideración esto y facilitar los procesos de separación en la fuente. Por último, queremos dar a conocer iniciativas relevantes de varios municipios que se tienen aquí en el Ecuador. Tenemos el proyecto Mi Quito Recicla. Quito es la capital del país, con una población aproximadamente a los 3 millones de habitantes. Ha iniciado este proyecto no hace mucho, en mayo del 2024, está en una fase de piloto, y el objetivo que se proyectan hasta el año 2027 es de poder alcanzar el porcentaje del 80% de aprovechamiento de los residuos sólidos. Es un proyecto piloto que está ubicado en 3 sitios, en 3 parroquias del cantón Quito, y en primera instancia se pretende tener un beneficio, un involucramiento de aproximadamente 30,000 habitantes. Y luego queremos compartirle el proyecto de una mancomunidad. Mancomunidad acá significa una agrupación de varios municipios o cantones contiguos de la mancomunidad Pueblo Cañari. Este es uno de los buenos ejemplos que tenemos acá en el país. Justamente es una mancomunidad conformada por 4 cantones. También ya está en una fase de implementación, beneficiando aproximadamente a 100,000 habitantes. Y tiene actividades complementarias que son involucradas a la separación con programas de educación ambiental y la instalación de maquinarias recicladoras que faciliten la separación. Actualmente se está separando 3 tipos de residuos en función de la normativa nacional que tenemos de colores de recipientes de almacenamiento de residuos sólidos. Y por último, queríamos dar a conocer a través de este código, si es que pueden acceder y poder revisar la información que hemos generado como ministerio, justamente en función de todas las actividades que realizamos como Ministerio del Ambiente y el proyecto de gestión de residuos sólidos y economía circular inclusiva. Ahí pueden encontrar nuestros contactos, y igual queremos reiterar el agradecimiento. Al final, si es que existen preguntas, estaremos atentos. Y ahora queremos darle el paso a Patrick. Muchas gracias.
Great, wonderful. Thank you very much, Luis. Muchísimas gracias. It's a really interesting look at the processes of designing and implementing a source segregation program, or really a number of programs really from the national level. So thank you very much for all of that amazing information. I just want to remind everyone to please submit your questions for Luis and for our other presenters using the Q&A function in WebEx, and hopefully we can have a great conversation once we hear from everybody. Great, so let's shift the conversation slightly to hear about the experience of a couple municipalities. We'll start with Aditi and Shadra to give us the perspective from India. So please take it away, Aditi.
Patrick, let me just move to my slide. Here we are. So thank you all. It's really nice for me to be joining you on this webinar on source separation of waste. In my opinion, one of the hardest topics in waste management, and not because it's a hard thing to do, but I think it's just harder than the easiest option of, throwing all your waste into one bin. So I'm just going to be a prelude to actually a presentation by the municipality of Indore, and Shraddha Tomar is going to represent that. I'm just giving a brief introduction to ISWA and a little bit about the global perspective on this topic, and then I'll pass it over to her. Very briefly about ISWA. ISWA, the International Solid Waste Association, is a global independent non-profit association that was founded in 1970 and is currently headquartered in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. And the vision and mission of ISWA is to promote and develop sustainable and professional waste management globally, and also promote a transition to a circular economy. That's what we've been talking about for a decade now. And I won't spend too much time here on this slide, but if you'd like to know more about about our member-based organization, you can visit us at iswa.org, www.iswa.org. Moving on to the topic of today. So we've already heard from Patrick. He gave an introduction about how our sector is the third largest anthropogenic sector that's emitting greenhouse gas, methane. And this slide would take me more than the time that we have right now, but I just wanted to present that IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, has estimated our sector to be emitting around 3% of greenhouse gases. And we as ISWA have made a case that, it's much underreported. We are probably closer to 15, 20, and 25% of greenhouse gas emissions. And that's because the waste sector benefits don't get counted in our sector itself always, because to avoid double counting, IPCC partitions the economy into sectors, and waste sector is basically at the end of pipe, and we're looked at as an end of pipe management system. But in these 4 quadrants, we've defined how actually, if you count right, our sector might be, anywhere between 15 to 30% of greenhouse gas emissions. So quickly moving on, we recently released a report called the Global Waste Management Outlook 2024. And in that report, we estimated that approximately 2.7 billion people in the world do not have their waste being collected. So if you look on the left side of the graph, you see North America, Western Europe, Northern Europe as well. They are closer to 99 to 100% of waste collection. And if you go all the way to the right, Southeast Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, we're only close to less than 40% of waste collection. So bringing the world average to 75%. And why is this a stark reality? It's because if you look at this graph, here we're just estimating what the destinations of municipal solid waste in 2020 were. And here we are basically saying that of the around 2 billion tons that were produced, of waste were produced, 62% were handled in controlled facilities, which includes sustainable and sound landfills, energy recovery, waste and recycling, but almost 40% was not collected or mismanaged by open dumping and open burning. So if you look at this graph in another way, almost 70% of the municipal solid waste that was produced is either being openly dumped or burned, but also finds itself on some form of landfills, not always the right kind. So basically, this means that a lot of the organic waste that we're producing and that we're generating is ending up on these sites. And if it's not managed properly, it's producing methane in anaerobic conditions and leaking into the environment. Not really quite what the waste hierarchy recommends. And if you move to this slide, we've basically mentioned some recommendations for what waste management priorities should be, including the fact that municipalities need to prioritize sound waste management. We need to look at zero waste models, circular economy models. We absolutely need to completely end the harmful and widespread practice of open burning and dumping. And of course, rather than being end of pipe, we need to start talking to producers, retailers, designers, anybody who's putting goods into the market, so that we can avoid waste generation as much as possible, and problematic materials should be designed out or phased out if possible. So why am I giving you this background? It's because one of the ways of dealing with the adverse impacts of organic waste reaching these dubious dump sites, landfills, being dumped openly, is that there are adequate treatment options for this type of waste, especially the organic fraction. There are a range of methods that are available for us, whether it's through composting, black soldier fly larvae production, recovering energy through biogas production, and so on. And the nice thing about these methods and technologies and solutions is that they are very scalable. So you can start from a household, moving up to a community, moving up to a centralized facility at a city level, and so on. And so this can prevent waste methane being produced from the waste and being leaked into the environment. So that's one case for why we need to do source separation and collect organics at the source. But of course, the other reasons why it's good for the environment and eventually for human health is because it helps conserve resources. It improves better recycling quality, recycling efficiency, because you get clean fractions from source separated waste. And finally, it promotes a circular economy by keeping these materials in the loops for longer. And so there are many, many reasons why it makes sense to promote source separation of waste, but there are equally the same number of reasons why it's very hard to achieve in practice. And that leads me to the next slide, which is about national legislation in India, because we're talking about a municipality in India, in central India, called Indore. And one of the ways to nudge our way into doing source separation, if you wanted to achieve it at a national level, is to have laws that support it, legislation that supports it. And in India, with the notification of the solid waste management rules in 2016, it's actually mandatory for all citizens to do source separation of waste. And basically, it's mandatory for all waste generators, so households, individuals, commercial establishments, and so on and so forth, markets and the HoReCa sector and so on. So we are required by law to separate waste into 3 streams: organic waste or biodegradable waste, dry waste, which is your dry recyclables, your plastics, your glass, and so on. And then the third category is the domestic hazardous, where you have your small batteries, you have your sanitary waste and diapers, and so on and so forth. But what is law if it's not just a piece of paper, if not applied? So if it's not being followed or enforced, it's just the first step to create these enabling conditions for source separation. And so it's much harder to do it in practice and on the ground. And that's why we want to present today the case of Indore, which is a tier 2 city, a medium-sized city, at least for Indian standards, located in the state of Madhya Pradesh in central India. And it has been ranked the cleanest city in India 7 times in a row now. But the case is that it wasn't always clean. It wasn't always this way. In fact, citizens of Indore were very frustrated with the waste management situation a decade ago, and now they have a very well-functioning waste management system, and that's why we want to present this successful case. And here to tell us about the story and the journey, we have Ms. Shraddha Tomar, who's the solid waste management expert at the Indore Municipal Corporation, where she has been since 2016. So she knows the story from the very beginning. And it's my honor to welcome her to this webinar and to present the case of Indore to you. Shraddha, if you can unmute yourself and just check if you can move the slides. Otherwise, I can do that for you. The floor is yours.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are audible. Yes.
Okay.
Can you move the slides?
Okay.
You'll
I'll
see a
just
little
share my
arrow.
screen then.
No, don't share your screen. So on the screen, you'll see the slides and there's a little arrow next to 52.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can.
Perfect.
Thank you, Aditi. Hello, everyone. Basically, Indore is a city of approx 30 lakhs population. The waste generation is approx 1150 to 1200 tons per day. When we started our journey, our per capita was 410. And at present, we have the per capita of 397. We have approximately 6 lakhs units to cater the services every day. And we have 19 zones. The entire city, which is the area of the city, is approx 276 square kilometers. And it is divided into 19 zones and 85 wards. To talk about the entire solid waste management chain, Indore Municipal Corporation has always focused on the certain parameters, like the backbone of the system, which we always believe in, is our door-to-door collection and segregation, on which the entire system is depending upon. Okay, and in order to maintain the segregation, we also follow the norms of segregating the sweeping waste also, which is being collected through our workers every day on a daily basis. So basically, we have 5 pillars on which we have focused. It is like cleaning and housekeeping, collection and transportation, processing and disposal, sanitation, and the behavioral change. Because in order to make a sustainable solution, it is very important, like whatever the implementation plan we have proposed for a city, it should become a public movement in order to get their involvement in the system so that it gets sustained. These were the certain challenges as the other cities in India are struggling. Like they have secondary storage bins placed across the city, and which are the medium of attraction for a lot of stray cattle, leading to a lot of traffic hindrance, road accidents, and etc. We also had approx 15 lakhs of tons of waste placed at our dump site, which is across 100-acre land. It was in 2015. We started our journey basically in 2015, in which we did a study to do a city profiling of the city in order to understand what are the size of the units, how many units are there, how many residential units are there, how many commercial units are there, how many industrial units are there, and then accordingly we did a area specific plannings. Initially when we were setting up the entire things, we had a lack of infrastructure. So initially we targeted like setting up the infrastructure for how we'll collect the waste, how we'll sweep the roads. Our motto was just to collect the waste, but we started with the mixed waste collection, and then we went on to climbing up in order to achieve the segregation. And it was very important for us initially to discipline our staff, to did a capacity building of our staff. Then in 2016 we successfully established 100% door-to-door collection. That was of a mixed waste, but we also declared ourselves as a bin free city. Later on in 2017 we went on for the 3 bin segregation. These were some mottos through which we started our journey. Basically, as I said, we are always focused on these 5 pillars. So right now we are focusing, like we have already achieved the level, so we are still focusing to ensure the sustainability. So we always focus on how we can keep on involving public. Right now, like we are also a water plus city where we have a zero visibility of black and gray water. We are a city with 100% 6 bin segregation. We are a city currently focused on reduction of per capita and working on 3R principles. And we are also working on the digital interventions. How can we use more and more ICT based mechanisms so that we reduce our dependency on the manpower. This is the process how in a year we achieved a tag of a bin free city and established 100% door-to-door collection. But in 2016 we had a mixed waste collection. In 17 we launched for a 3 bin segregation, and in 2020 we launched for a 6 bin segregation. See, basically, if I talk about the segregation, we had a plan, area specific plan, like how many number of vehicles will be required, how many number of units will be there, how many number of trips will be taken. So we defined a route plan for our vehicles, and we asked our driver and helper, which are accompanied with the volunteer of an NGO which is impaneled to Indore Municipal Corporation, and along these 3 people every day going on the routes. When the people are coming out of their houses, they're interacting with them. Basically, the volunteers of the NGOs playing a key role here, bridging a gap between the IMC and the citizen, and they play a vital role. Why? Because they're connecting us with the citizen every day. We are getting in touch with their everyday problem. The complaints were getting resolved within less time, so that we can keep engaging public and we can have a bond with the public, so that they can also get involved in our campaign of segregation. So basically it took approx after establishing a door-to-door collection 2016, it took approx only 6 months to establish 3 bin segregation for us, because initially we focused on gaining the faith of the public and getting their trust on us, and maintaining a service delivery up to the 100%, so that it is our responsibility to give 100% in our service delivery, and they can have connectivity, like as in Indian cities generally it is there, like people don't have faith on the municipalities. They think that they are corrupted, they don't work, and they are not doing their services properly, because they are struggling a lot with n number of things, like like water supply is also our responsibility, the entire drainage system is also our responsibility, the electricity, the supply of the street lights and everything, it's our responsibility. So they have been struggling a lot because of n number of reasons. So we focus on resolving their complaints and gaining their faith and trust on us, so that whatever we are asking them, they'll believe in it and they'll follow it if we'll resolve their complaints. But it is, after getting segregation at source, it is responsibility of the municipality, like how you are transporting the waste from, if you're getting the segregated waste without any human interruption and without getting mixed. Hence, what we did, we have established a separate systems here. Like we have a separate, as you can see here in the chart, we have separate system for litter bin collection, we have separate system for collection of road sweeping waste, we have system for collection of the units generates up to 10 kgs of waste every day, which in C2 goes to the transfer station, and then from transfer station through big containers and the hook loaders, we are transporting it to the main processing site. And we also have a separate system called bulk collection system for the units which generates more than 10 kgs of waste every day. We have a separate fleet for C&D waste collection, we have separate fleet for garden waste collection, and for a sewer cleaning mechanism. For each and every streams of waste, we have separate fleet of collection, so that nothing gets mixed in between, and it gets transported with the quality to the processing site. And that is the reason we managed to grab the opportunity of having Asia's biggest bio-CNG plants of 50 TPD. But it all depends, like how you are implementing your plan should be, whatever you are planning for that particular specific area, it should be very appropriate. For that, you required a waste characterization and quantification studied prior. It should be done in a very effective manner, and the planning should also be for us, like for administrative. If I'll talk about the ULB perspective, we have n number of before implementing, we have n number of stakeholders to first to convince them. Like we have political leaders, firstly we need to involve them. It is very important for as an urban local body to have a political acceptance before implementing anything in any area. So it was one of the difficult call for us to have a political acceptance. It was difficult for us to engage media, so that media, whatever you are doing in that particular specific area, media projects it in a positive manner, so that it gives a positive image in public's mindset. So there are n number of aspects which you need to focus on while implementation. You might be also need to manage the things with the unions as you are deploying the manpower here. So there are a lot of factors which involves in the implementation, and a lot of efforts being involved. As I said, we have a separate collection system for units generates more than 10 kgs, so we call it a bulk waste collection system. Here we have a separate collection system for meat waste also, like fish market, meat market, butcher shops are being collected every day in a separate manner with a separate fleet. And like approximately, in order to have a complete coverage every day on everyday basis, basically 800 fleets runs every day, which have predefined routes and which is being monitored through our integrated control and command center. And we not only ensure like 100% coverage, but we always ensure a in order coverage. And we have a we have, as I said, we have 19 zones, like entire city is divided into 19 zones. So we have 19 screens over there, and we have people sitting in two shifts monitoring, like as we have the collection system, twice a day collection system in commercial areas and once in a day collection system in residential area. Apart from that, there are areas wherein we empty the litter bin 4 times a day. Sweeping also herein is a 24 hours job. So for collection of sweeping waste also, we have defined a different kind of vehicles, and we also have predefined routes for them also. So all of the entire operations, the 24/7 entire operations, is being monitored through a center. And if they find any of the things which is not happening as per the plan, they immediately gets connected with the field staff, and they report it to the field staff, like you are not going in a proper lane, like, or for example, you have skipped a line or you have skipped the point, you need to go back, cover it, and then go move forward. So such kind of operations or the monitoring is being conducted every day. And I think this, as we are talking about the landfill and the methane generation, I would like to add our personal experience after ensuring or getting the source segregation at source. Like we had a landfill which we constructed in 2010, and we estimated the landfill, the size of the landfill is approx the capacity of the landfill is approx 6 lakhs tons capacity, and we estimated it for 25 years. But when and that time, the generation of the inert after processing was approx 30 to 35%. But after getting segregation, now the inert is up to 5 to 10% only. So now we have increased the life of our landfill also. So I think it is very important to segregate the waste at source itself, rather than going for a mixed waste collection sort of thing. But for that, it is very important to have a public involvement in this system and deal at 360-degree level aspects. So it is very important to understand the practical aspects and implement the things in according to the field feasibility. Every area, every city has different planning. So I think the planning for segregation should be area specific and city specific. You cannot implement the exact plan, but you can somewhat learn from the other planning or the system or the SWM model, but exactly can't be replicated in any of the city. I think over to Aditi.
Thank you so much, Shraddha. I think in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through the rest of the slides. These were just examples from South India, but I think Shraddha has given a fantastic overview of what Indore has done and also made a good case for source separation. I mean, their landfill capacity and the time frame for the landfills has gone up just by source separation. I just want to end with one thing though, because it's an ideal and it's also the goal to have, and I didn't start my video again, sorry. It is a goal to achieve source separation. It can also be an ideal that the city wants to reach, but we need to be realistic. It takes a lot of time. It takes almost a decade in some cases. And in that case, the practitioners and the people who are on the ground should also, have facilities that can deal with mixed waste and make sure that no untreated waste is reaching final disposal sites, so that we can reduce our methane emissions and so on. I was recently discussing behavior change with another ISWA expert, and she was refuting my arguments and saying that it's not about behavior change. It's more about systems, putting systems in place that make it easy for people to do source separation and making the right thing the default thing, or making the default the right thing to do. But I didn't agree with her fully. So I do think it's also about behavior change, not easy to establish. I think you're going to hear good case studies from Latin America and the rest of the world from Delterra. And that's where I'd like to just end. My last slide was actually a little tuk-tuk, awareness raising tuk-tuk that we have for one of our projects. It goes around telling people how to do source separation at homes and so on. And that's my last slide. So back to you, Patrick. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much for all that really amazing information. I think it's clear that source segregation it can be just a part, obviously an important part, but just a part of broader policies and movements to improve municipal service delivery while improving environmental and public health. So thanks also for that great transition to our next presenters. I want to move over to our friends at Delterra to hear some interesting insights.
Sorry to interrupt. This is Claire Zimmerman from the GMI team. I also just wanted to make sure that we mentioned that we're going to soon be having a case study come out about Indore's transformation and, kind of put into kind of concrete just steps what Shraddha and Aditi presented. So I wanted to make sure the listeners keep an eye out for that from GMI. And sorry to interrupt.
No, that's great. Thanks so much for bringing that to our attention. That's really important. Great. So let's move over to Delterra, to Jeremy and Mariano to hear about some really interesting insights. Again, I think Aditi touched on it at the end of her discussion about the need to attend to behavior change at the household level, as well as these sort of system and policy level discussions that we've been having so far. So I'll hand it over to Jeremy and Mariano to introduce yourself and let us know about Olavarria.
All right, thanks so much, Pat. I know we're behind time, so I'm going to try to go quickly to make it up. And a lot of people have said some of the great stuff that I was going to talk about anyway, so I'm not going to repeat some of those things, but Mariano is the one you're going to want to hear from more anyway, because he is the behavior change practitioner at Delterra. So who is Delterra? We're a nonprofit organization that is working to develop and implement scalable circular economy solutions in global south countries. So we work across the entire value chain of waste systems, dealing with all different types of municipal solid waste, ultimately trying to build the capacity of nonprofit organizations or of municipalities primarily to be able to have sustainably functioning waste management systems. As we heard, a lot of countries do not have that around the world. We work currently in Argentina, Brazil, and Indonesia. And mentioned we work across the value chain all the way from sort of upstream, helping companies think about design of packaging, so trying to turn off the tap at the source before waste is even produced, but then a lot of work downstream also helping manage waste that's put out into the world. As you already know, it has been well covered. Organic waste is a huge contributor to methane emissions and short-term emissions. So it's a great opportunity to have low-tech solutions to tackle climate change. And as you've also heard, most countries have, especially in the global south, 50% or more, or around 50% of their municipal solid waste is coming from organic sources. And so those three countries that we work in, you can see the lion's share is coming from organic waste. So it's solving waste management is solving organic waste primarily for these countries. So that's something that we're focused on. We work in a number of different areas, all the way from community engagement, behavior change, building the capacity of waste management services, whether that be a municipality or, in the case of Indonesia, sub-municipal or sort of informal sector, loosely formalized organizations and individuals. But then we also try to match that with the demand side. So collection and source separation is one thing, but who then is going to buy this material? And we see that if you don't think about the demand side, then the sort of interventions can collapse, because people wonder why they would even bother separating these things if there's no economic case for it, and the city is just continuing to spend money and doesn't see a way to actually recoup some of that. So that's why we feel it's really important to have the supply and the demand side for waste management. And what I want to show today, and what Mariano, my colleague in Argentina, is going to talk more about, is some of the insights we've gathered on behavior change specifically. We published these findings and reports on our website. So if you go to delterra.org and you go under our Knowledge Hub, we've sort of open sourced everything we've discovered about behavior change, and insights and interventions are freely available there. And for anyone else who wants to use those, who are practitioners, like, please do. We want this to scale as much as possible. And so one thing I do want to highlight that hasn't been mentioned as much right now is that behavior change actually can be the most cost-effective way to keep organics out of landfill and to develop circular solutions for this. More effective, as we found, and more economical than using technology. And this is especially true in global south countries, that they don't have the budget to be able to invest into infrastructure, or even we've seen sometimes a city has been sold on some fancy piece of equipment, but it was not at all what they needed. There was no OpEx to go with that for repairs and maintenance. And so it ended up just collecting dust and not being valuable. So behavior change, tried and true, low tech, low cost, high ROI. So that's why we really believe that, behavior change at source is the most effective way to improve the value of all materials throughout the chain. So what I want to do is now focus on, missing some slides, but Olavarria is a city in Argentina that we've been working in for the last 3.5, 4 years. It's a mid-sized city, about 120,000 people. And this was an interesting example for Delterra to look at how could we transform an entire city's waste management system to go from almost 100% of their waste going directly to landfill to increasing the diversion significantly of organics and recyclables. So how could we take this city and transform it? And one thing I think is interesting for others who are working in different places around the world is we've found that if there's already a certain level of infrastructure there and collection, like they were already collecting waste 6 days a week, unbelievably, they were picking up mixed waste 6 days a week. And so there was already the infrastructure, the collection, the municipality was spending money on waste management, but they were just not doing any recycling at all and no organics collection or diversion. They didn't have a MRF, the material recovery facility, didn't have any composting site or equipment. So this was kind of an exciting opportunity because they have a lot of the framework in place, or a lot of the foundation that we can build on. And we just needed to work with the city to look at how can we go from everything going to landfill to recovering as much as possible. So most of that waste was going to landfill. And how did we manage to get people to shift from putting mixed waste out 6 days a week to having different collection and different separation? And that's what I want my colleague Mariano to talk about now, who is a behavior change expert, has lots of experience and academic background in behavioral insights and how to get people to shift their behavior, because as I mentioned, that can be the most cost-effective way of driving change, and especially with organics as the primary issue that we're talking about today. So without further ado, I'll get out of the way and I'll hand it over to Mariano now to talk about some of the specific interventions that we did in Olavarria and how we took it from 0% recycling to now transformed city. So over to you, Mariano.
Thank you, Jeremy. Amazing brief. So we do it with a recycling behavior journey. We have a human-centered design framework at the core of our behavior change program design. And we have 3 principal stages: explore, design, and implement. We take some methodologies of design thinking and agile methodologies and have a blend with anthropological innovation and behavioral science to do this. So in our explore, in the discovery, we use qualitative research like deep interviews, ethnographic and participant observations as qualitative research. And also we make some quantitative methods like surveys. So with this information, we move to the analysis. And in the analysis, we want to understand the people we are trying to reach. And in Olavarria example, we identify a city very family friendly, with a modern infrastructure, a small town feel, and a place where neighbors know and recognize one another. So we learned in this case that the residents take pride in their city and want to have a stronger recycling culture. Residents also identify the practice of mixing all their waste together instead of recycling some of it as a pain point. So residents said they want to do their part to adopt more modern practice in moving to the circularity. So with this explore stage done, our delivery is design principles. And in this case, our design principles were first, the waste management as a civic duty, then the trend of urban modernization, third, the reinforcement of new habits. So we want to empower people with helpful reminders and make them feel equipped. And four, and of course important, the face-to-face interactions. So it's a city with a small town feel, like I said, and talk with another human was an important part of making information of compostables accessible, credible, effective. So in an increasing digital era, it also stood out as an add value, this face-to-face. So with all that in mind, we then move to the design. So we had workshops and ideations with stakeholders and of course with residents. So once we understand Olavarria culture and attitudes, we set up the design of this behavior change experience. We developed several mock-ups of what a recycling system would look and feel like, and showed them to residents in focus group. Examples of that are, okay, I missed some slides, but we proved different concepts, and then we choose a concept of focus on the impact, and focus also of people like message about recycling as the way of the future. So in this city, it was important that so we choose that model, and then we link this concept with interventions, and we test different pilots to see what will have the best results to scale across the city. We test door-to-door with starter kits. Starter kits are magnetics and sandbags. Then we have good results with that pilot. Then we prove another options like videos and digital registrations. Not good enough. So after testing various options, we understood that the blend focus on door-to-door interactions, but supplement also by top-down and digital channels was the most effective approach. So we moved with that. When we do that, we also use the door-to-door interventions to make two important things. One, to profile users, because when you're in the city, you have different waste avid persons. And also, and we do that with surveys in the door-to-door activation. And we also use that interaction to understand deeply the barriers, see the roots of why the people are not separating. So after the first door-to-door, we identify these three archetypes of potential recyclers. And because of the results, we decide to focus our energy in the non-practitioners, no? Because we have more chance to make a better change there. So, as I say, we identify a lot of barriers. Now I will share with you two of them. One, it's the lack of knowledge about how to properly separate. So to do something against this barrier, we think in two interventions. One, in the second face-to-face visit, because we go again, then in the door-to-door visits. And in the second, we target potential recyclers and provide guidance on the practice of collecting organic waste over 1 week. So one person look into their eyes, give the information to change the habit against that barrier. And then we implement a chatbot flow on how to compost, nice with a trivia game to add a playful element to the digital interaction. Well, another barrier was that citizens not feel equipped enough to start this new practice. So we equipped them with some elements. And finally, there is the belief that after it's collected, it ends up in the same place. And ultimately does not generate a positive impact. So because of that, we make things like divided the collected days, intervened with separate streams the tracks, add to the chatbot flow with visual content on how the materials end up correctly, and different things in public events, like, for example, distribute compostable materials from the plant at public events, no? Just to show that what they are doing matters and make a real impact in the environmental. That's for me. Thank you. Patrick?
Great. Thank you so much, Mariano and Jeremy. Thanks also to all of our presenters. Thank you very much for those amazing presentations. I think it really gives us a view into designing, testing, and implementing source segregation programs from a variety of angles and levels. We at GMI want to be sure to drive the point home that these source segregation programs are an essential component of efforts to divert organics from landfills and reduce methane emissions from the municipal solid waste sector. So the better we can get at keeping organic waste out of landfills in the first place, the more progress we can make on reducing methane from the MSW sector, and source segregation is one of those pillars to that approach. So thanks again for all of that amazing information. We have some time now for questions from the audience. We've had some questions rolling in, which is great to see. I just want to remind folks to use the Q&A function in the app and to direct those questions to all panelists, and we'll shepherd it on from there. So I have a question for all of our panelists to get us started. But first, can I ask our panelists to please come on camera for our Q&A and conversation portion, just so we can all be present. Awesome. Thank you all. So I would love to hear more about the baseline data for your projects, and maybe for some of the policies as well, sort of either some initial thoughts or expounding on some of the thoughts you gave us during your presentation, recognizing that each municipality has a different starting point from which will dictate sort of different interventions. I wonder if you could tell us or revisit what are some of the baseline data that you needed to make your program a success. And I assume some of it was waste characterization data, but sort of what else were the inputs that led to success, and was it readily available, or is it something that you had to coordinate with local government or with other contractors if you are the local government, or invest in technical assistance to generate that data yourself? So maybe let's start in reverse order, and I can pass it over to Jeremy and Mariano.
Great, thank you. Mariano, did you want to start, and then I can jump in? Okay, I'll start. Yeah, we do. I mean, at a very macro level, determining which city we work with, the baseline data we gather is across 6 different dimensions. We call it our Circular Cities Framework. Again, that's published on our website, but it looks at policies, collection and separation, demand market, infrastructure, budget, political willingness. So before we even decide to work with a city, there's that sort of baseline data gathering of like what capabilities are in place, what is the current situation. We wouldn't work with a city if the mayor wasn't motivated to move forward. So there's a huge political element to this for sure. But then once we get into actually deciding to work on this, we do that baselining with the waste characterization in order to determine, like what are the right interventions. But when it comes to organics specifically, I think a big thing that we look at is how contaminated are the organics, because that will help drive insights around behavior change of like, oh, maybe people aren't understanding what goes in the organics versus recycling versus mixed waste. So that can help provide that feedback loop. But it also determines what the offtake markets and treatment options are. A very clean organic stream will have higher value, and it could actually potentially be certified to go back into food production in agriculture, but very highly contaminated organics might be used for co-processing, or like there might be other things that are offtake markets. So I think that baselining of like the quality is really important. And final thing, we've started working with Google recently to use AI to put on the conveyor belts that are coming into the MRFs to be able to determine like how much, and this actually was trialed in India, but like how is the quality of those different collection routes informing what we need to do at the household separation level, so that we can provide that feedback of like what's working and what's not. So using AI and technology, I noticed there was a question came up around that, not necessarily that use, but that's another way that we're trying to incorporate that into baselining.
Great, thank you, Mariano. Did you want to jump in there, or?
I think that Jeremy shared all the principal insights about this. Just to add that in the Olavarria case, it was important to design a recycling system that was very pragmatic and impact oriented. That works very well in Olavarria case.
Great, that's really helpful. Thanks very much for that overview. Sounds like some sophisticated methods that are rooted in the local context. Sounds very helpful. Aditi and Shadra, what sort of baseline data was helpful, particularly thinking about, I mean, obviously, in the case of Indore, we're talking about a larger sort of municipal service reform project, but thinking specifically about source segregation, what are the types of baseline data that was helpful to designing that part of the project?
Do you want to go, or should I say something about Chennai? Oh, I don't think she can hear me. Okay, let me just give you an example of the examples that I didn't speak about. Agreeing with what Jeremy said, hi Jeremy, with all of that, of course, political will and so on, without the mayor's support, I mean, Shraddha was not able to present for a very long time, but when we heard the story first about Indore, it was all about political will. So once that's established, looking at waste generation patterns was very important. So at least in the Chennai case, they definitely want to know what the peak times are when people go out to throw waste out into the street. And they always found that people, before leaving for work, wanted to put out the waste and not think about it. So that's how the logistics were designed. So then they had to put out most of their collection vehicles in the morning, from 8 o'clock in the morning to say about 2 p.m. And their second shift would begin later on. So that kind of data was essential. So people's behavior patterns was very essential for designing the best waste systems for them. Also motivational factors, depending on the season, the seasonality, depending on which kind of festivals were coming along, because India, we have a lot of celebrations, a lot of organic waste is generated in those festivals and so on. And then that led to, of course, resource optimization. Shraddha talked a little bit about ICT, which is basically Internet of Things in some ways, information and your computing system, so that you can track how your fleet is moving. So that in the case of Chennai, they do a good job of monitoring how much waste is being collected from where. And these RFID tags basically tell the truck that is going on a route that this bin is full, this bin is not full. So, changing routes dynamically and so on. That kind of data is collected as well. Of course, characterization, data about generation is absolutely necessary at the beginning. And you need to keep doing that periodically too, because one of the few findings we have from the GWMO is that as your GDP is going up, you're generating more waste, and your waste is also changing as you're going up the GDP ladder. So having these waste characterization studies in a periodic manner also is very helpful. And then finally, of course, designing these logistical systems that are actually effective and also affordable, because we've seen also cases in cities and municipalities where they design really fancy things, but then that kind of goes to waste because the operational costs are not being met and people are not paying for waste collection and so on. So a lot of these things are collected with the data that you collect right at the beginning of designing a system. And I hope Shraddha can hear me so that she can come in. Shraddha, can you hear me?
Yes, Aditi,
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. Please, if you want to add the Indore case, thank you.
Actually, in India, we have implementation is one challenge, another is a sustainability challenge is also there with us. as we are now we have a brand value of a cleanest city of India. So a lot of people are coming and attracting, and they want to establish here itself in the city. So it's very, it's everyday task for us to keep getting them in loop of segregation, because they are coming from another city for settling down in Indore itself. So it's like to getting them into the loop is very important. Another thing is like the sustainability in terms of financial things is also important. Like, increasing the user charges and creating n number of domains for earning the money, because if I talk about Indore, the entire operation is in-house. We don't have any outsourcing in it. Okay, so there is a huge cost involved in a collection transportation, whether it is primary or the secondary collection transportation. So the financial sustainability is also important. Keep on updating your staff, keep on motivating your staff, like to put in every day the same energy is also one of the tasks for us. Keep on getting the public get engaged in it is also a task. Keep on getting the political leaders engaged in it is also one of the tasks, so that whatever the changes we are doing in everyday system, like it always gets accepted by them. And also the routes which we have predefined for each and every vehicle, it's, we need to keep on remodify it in certain regular interval of time. So, maintaining the segregation, I think Indore is sustaining it because the system is now handed over to the public. Now they are running the system. As as a government body, we have, like, as I am working here since 2015, but currently the 5th commissioner and the 2nd mayor is sitting with us. Okay, and every time you cannot expect the same person with the same passion, with the same energy they will put into the system, and the same interest as the previous commissioner was taking. This commissioner will take the same interest. We cannot expect it from the person. And it changes, like when there is a transition phase, it changes, the systems comes, sometimes comes down, sometimes goes up, but it is sustaining because the public is involved, and it was very difficult for us to convince them for us. That is the most difficult task in India, for the political acceptance. And because we have n number of plans already predefined, all of the cities, I don't think so there are any city in India, they don't have DPRs, they don't have plans, but the implementation part is weak just because of n number of involvement and the interference of the various stakeholders into the system. So, you need to deal with this sector, which, I have already previous mentioned also. But I think financial sustainability also we need to focus on is a major, task for Indian cities at present, because, the commissioner who is heading it, his own, not only, his priority is not only the cleanliness, he has a number of priorities to serve on, so financially they keeps on diverting the funds here and there. But as Indore, we are generating a lot of revenues through carbon credits, through EPRs. After, as we are successful in giving services to citizens, they are happy to pay the user charges to us. So we are the ULV managing the collection of approx 90% of the user charges of the demand. So I think if the service delivery and the planning and everything keeps on in in a proper manner, or the chain, you will get the support from the citizens. But you need to not only focus on the cleanliness, but you need to also simultaneously focus on the other service delivery also, which comes under our responsibility, to just to gain the faith. And the one thing which I think you were also presenting, like the one-to-one interaction plays a vital role. As I previously also shared, like when you hammer the iron and it takes the shape when it is hot, the same when public is coming out, you need to keep on hammering their mind. Please give your waste into the vehicle. Please give your waste into the vehicle. Please segregate into 3 bins. Please segregate it. So every day, hammering on their mind with the same dialogue plays a vital role here. So I think the segregation is the main key and the main backbone of the entire solid waste management chain, I would say, as per our learning. Because we didn't thought of having bio CNG, we didn't thought of having automatic, fully automatic material recovery facility and so on and so. We were just focused on the collection, satisfying our services, because we have a lot of petitions on us. Publics were completely dissatisfied with us. and the collector and commissioner keeps on going to the high court and keep on giving the answers. So our learning is just focus on the backbone. The entire system will automatically get set. You will
Thanks.
gather the opportunity for processing also. But
Thank you.
firstly, you need to focus on the study your waste very minutely, very in an effective manner. You should be the understanding with the kind of waste and the quantification, the characterization should be very good in order to have such planning. That is my
Great.
opinion, because I am involved and I have did that analysis for Indore. So my understanding with the city is at that level now. If I'll move to another
Awesome.
city, then I'll also take some time to have understanding of the waste with that city. But I think this makes you successful in this entire journey.
Great.
Thanks,
Thank you
Shraddha.
so much. Appreciate that. That's a great sort of all-encompassing view of the dynamic data needed to keep to get the process started, to keep it going, and then also to the sort of foundational need to have that data to make it a success. So thank you very much for that. Luis, please feel free to tell us about the baseline data needed to make your program a success. We also have another question in the chat for you. I just want to note if you all are able to stick around for a couple more minutes, we'd love to extend it just to hear from everybody and keep the conversation going. But if you have to drop off, please feel free. So, Luis, por favor, díganos sobre los datos esenciales del programa de separación de los residuos, o por favor responde a la pregunta qué acciones dentro de la hoja de ruta del Ecuador están viendo para desarrollar la infraestructura para la adecuada gestión de los residuos.
Gracias, Patrick. Sí, justamente para empezar por la pregunta del chat, actualmente en el país estamos desarrollando justamente a la par varios instrumentos de política pública nacional. Y el desafío que tenemos nosotros es justamente poder articular estos instrumentos. Como les comentaba, ya tenemos una hoja de ruta para atender la problemática de los residuos plásticos. Y además de eso, estamos también formulando el Plan Nacional de la Gestión Integral de Residuos Sólidos, un Plan Nacional de Reducción de Plásticos de un Solo Uso y la Estrategia Nacional de Economía Circular Inclusiva. Circular inclusiva es porque acá ha tomado mucha relevancia en el país el tema de la vinculación de los recicladores de base, que son justamente las personas que en un estimado aproximadamente de 20,000 familias en el país trabajan o están asociados justamente a estas actividades de reciclaje de base, que son justamente las personas que trabajan en cierta medida de una forma más informal en la cadena del reciclaje. Justamente uno de los desafíos es poder, a través de estas políticas y hojas de ruta, definir ejes estratégicos sobre los que se implementen las acciones del país a futuro. Y justamente se ha definido el cambio de comportamiento y un consumo responsable, que tiene que ver de la mano con la separación de la fuente. Uno de los ejes o pilares en los que se debe desarrollar o implementar actividades o programas más específicas, por ende la separación de la fuente. Como les indicábamos, de los 221 municipios que tenemos en el país, apenas el 14% tiene ya implementado un proceso más sostenido de separación en la fuente. Hemos podido analizar a nivel macro, desde el Ministerio del Ambiente, varios factores que han incidido justamente en que todavía la mayoría de municipios no logren implementar la separación, y coincidimos justamente con el resto de panelistas que un tema relevante, o si no el más relevante, es justamente la decisión política. Acá en el país, los gobiernos municipales locales tienen un periodo de mandato de 4 años, con un máximo de reelección de 8 años consecutivos, pero justamente ya procesos o iniciativas de proyectos que se han implementado en la separación en la fuente justamente se han caído por el tema de decisión política. Y también justamente tienen que ver factores culturales. Acá en el país tenemos 4 regiones geográficas verticales bien marcadas, y la mayoría de proyectos o iniciativas de separación de la fuente que se dan o se tienen en el país están concentradas en la región andina. Y justamente hacemos un análisis que tiene que ver con factores culturales. Es justamente una población que tiene ya una mayor cultura justamente sobre la problemática de los residuos sólidos. Y también tenemos un factor que hemos analizado, lo que les comentaba también en la presentación, es que los municipios que ya han implementado estos sistemas de contenerización público, justamente de contenedores públicos, se les dificulta implementar procesos de separación, porque ya la población se está acostumbrando justamente a depositar los residuos de forma mezclada en estos contenedores públicos. Otros componentes que queríamos, o más bien factores que justamente queríamos indicar, es también que los municipios que han implementado la separación en la fuente son municipios cuya población es pequeña, municipios que bordan o llegan a un máximo de población de 50,000 habitantes. De ahí también justamente la idea de poder implementar ya proyectos pilotos como el que les comentaba a nivel de capital de Quito, ya de que sea más ambicioso y que genere un mayor impacto a nivel nacional. En ese sentido, esperamos y estamos ya coordinando para trabajar con el municipio de Quito justamente en estos procesos o este pilotaje que ha iniciado en el mes de mayo de la separación a la fuente. Hay 4 sectores en los que se va a intervenir. Justamente se ha decidido intervenir en sectores en los que tienen un estrato socioeconómico alto. Y la idea también es justamente poder ir con el resto de municipios de cantones del país involucrando en este proceso de separación en la fuente. Eso queríamos comentarles también. Hemos visto que los municipios que han podido tener una sostenibilidad en el proceso de separación en la fuente son los que ya han marcado a través de sus ordenanzas un marco regulatorio específico que ya define justamente la separación en la fuente, y también los municipios que han creado en cierta medida una autonomía. Lastimosamente acá institucionalmente los municipios todavía tienen deficiencias, y los municipios que han tenido mejores resultados en las separaciones son los que han logrado crear empresas públicas que en cierta medida tienen autonomía de los municipios para justamente poder gestionar los residuos sólidos. Todavía como les indico, tenemos un desafío todavía importante por implementar la separación en la fuente del país, pero con todas estas iniciativas, la formulación de estas herramientas técnicas, justamente nosotros tenemos la ambición de poder ya definir metas en el corto y mediano plazo, justamente que implementen el porcentaje de separación en la fuente en el país. Gracias.
Great. Muchas gracias. Sounds like lots of varied experience just sort of within that national level plan, lots of moving parts, different size municipalities to work with, and the availability or lack thereof of essential data and the need to generate that and gather that and feed that into the system to make it a success. So we are a few minutes over. I just want to take the time to thank everybody thank especially our panelists for being with us today and providing such amazing, useful information from a variety of different perspectives and different levels. I hope everyone enjoyed the presentation as much as me. Again, I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to all of our presenters. And thank everybody for taking time out of your day to learn about reducing methane emissions from solid waste management through source segregation. We look forward to meeting and learning together again soon. We do have a last slide at the end of that, at the end of our slideshow today, with some information on how to engage GMI. We're continually updating our list of events and resources on our website, and occasionally sending information, including our newsletter, through our listserv. So go ahead and check that out, and please sign up for our listserv if you're interested. And finally, if you have questions or would like to speak with the GMI team, feel free to visit our website and submit a contact us request. So thank you again to all of our panelists. Thanks all for presenting the information, and thanks to all of our participants for spending some time with us today. Take care, everyone.
Bye.